Greetings, welcome to the Brain Gauge channel. Real quick tutorial on what the timing perception measure means. And the timing perception measure, if you're pulling up your Brain Gauge analysis app, you're looking at it, and what you see is the overall trend here, and you see the larger circle here, so that that has selected the data from this particular date. And you see all these scores right here. The timing perception measures right there, and obviously that's a you know an okay measure. But then where did it come from? It comes from duration discrimination, and duration discrimination is just a simple measure determining which stimulus lasted longer, or your ability to tell the difference between two stimuli where one lasted longer than another. In this case, the duration discrimination value is listed as 60, and that means 60 milliseconds. Keep in mind, over here, smaller numbers are better, and over here, larger numbers are better. So what you're shooting for over here is to get something in the, that's all green and a full bar, like at 100. But over here, the best you're going to do is probably in the 20 to 30 range. But 30 to 60 milliseconds is about the right is a reasonable range to shoot for. Where does that number come from? Again, duration discrimination is just asking about which stimulus lasted longer. So on one finger, there's a vibration that lasts this long, and on the other finger, there's one that doesn't last nearly as long. And basically what happens is this shorter stimulus actually never changes. It's always 500 milliseconds in most protocols. And the longer stimulus starts out at 750. So we've got a stimulus starting out at 750 milliseconds in duration, one starting out at 500. And if you can tell the difference of which one lasted longer, then you get it right. And then that difference between those two stimuli gets shorter, and consequently gets shorter and shorter and shorter until you reach some kind of threshold. And in this case, the average, or the computed threshold, was 565. And to determine the difference Lyman, like I showed you on the last page, the DL, determines 565 minus 500. Now, this is all done automatically for you. I'm just showing you where that came from. So it's a pretty straightforward test. And obviously, we randomize which finger gets the shorter or longer stimuli each time. So it's, you can't cheat on this and just pick the same finger every time. Now, the interesting stuff about this is, what do changes in timing perception mean? And an increased duration discrimination, like we said, means your timing perception is worse. It's been associated with a lot of different things, migraines and Parkinson's, and basically all kinds of degenerative disorders. Or actually, it's also, people on the autism spectrum also generally have pretty poor timing perception. But the interesting part of this is that the cerebellum is that part of the brain that kind of coordinates things. It coordinates sensory and motor inputs. And, if you have trouble with the cerebellum, you're going to start having some motor coordination issues, hence Parkinson's, think about that. But there were several experiments done. We didn't do any of them. Can't blame us. Where they blocked, in 3 different labs, they blocked activity in that part of the brain, and using TMS, and just turned it off, and then, or turned it way down, and then that greatly diminished those people's ability to perform a timing perception task. They could no longer do that timing perception. So that's one way. So there's a couple of ways to identify what different measures do. And one way, obviously, was blocking that activity. And another way to do it is look at all the neurological disorders that have problems with timing perception, and you sort of start to deduce where it is. Things like THC are systemic. So, alcohol obviously if you drink enough, that would impact it. Again, these lists that I show, they are just limited to the papers that were, or publications that we found when we were looking at this, and there's probably more publications since that time. But timing perception can get impacted in a lot of ways. But another interesting thing is there's some evidence that timing perception improves with motor coordination exercises and with musical training. So, or dance training. It actually, when you take somebody that's got like some issues with timing perception and you start doing these coordination exercises, and there's a little bit of evidence that their timing perception actually improves, which is kind of interesting. And I look forward to seeing other papers about that. So if you have any other questions about this, please feel free. I'd love to make another video on it. I'm always willing to do some research and find more answers to more questions. And check in with us anytime. See some of the other related videos. Thanks for coming.